Hi everyone, this is Norman Kochnick here from Eyes on Cricket. And as I always say, with Norman Kochnick, I know I keep repeating my name, but it's a way of my branding continuing. And some people are annoyed by it, some people love it. I'm joined once again by Mosen Sheikh. How are you?
I'm very well, Norman. Hi to yourself, hi to your audience. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's just fabulous, fabulous Test cricket. As we sit here now, there's still probably another 20 odd minutes of play. Australia are, 5 for 206. As the commentary was just saying, it's delicately poised. If they get another wicket or two now, Pakistan are monumentally on top, especially on a pitch which really should have favoured the batters today, and it has, for Khawaja and for Steve Smith in particular. But let's just ponder on one thing. Okay, Usman Khawaja on his very own, in the last three first innings of the Test matches, has scored 97, 160, and now 91. That is absolutely fabulous. Admittedly, Imam al-Haq's done very well, and so is Shafiq, and Babar Azam was magnificent. But this is pretty damn impressive by an Australian batter on these conditions. It's almost like Khawaja was, I think if Khawaja was, as he was born in Pakistan and continued to live in Pakistan, he would be probably playing for Pakistan. Let's be honest.
Oh, look, the most pleasing thing is the guy was out of favour, not even considered for Test cricket. All of a sudden, he comes back in Sydney, scores back-to-back 100. Now he looks like he is the best batsman in Aussie batting lineup. You look at Steve Smith and Marnus, they look, well, Steve Smith, to an extent, he looks much better than Marnus. Marnus looks out of sort, his first tour to subcontinent in Pakistan conditions, and I think he's struggling. He struggled in Karachi, he struggled here in Lahore. The first couple of deliveries, the ball has come quick in the airspeed in Lahore is much better, and off the deck it has done a lot better. As we spoke yesterday, that this pitch has got a bit more life than you would have seen in Rawalpindi or in Karachi. And that's why the pace has been successful. The spin has been gripping, even it's the first day. And when you saw guys when they got on first ball, when they marked their guards, the scratch on the surface, it had a little bit in it. It had a little bit of moisture in it earlier on, and that resulted in first 2 wickets earlier on with Warner. He's again, the disappointing part is that he's getting tested with that short, fast delivery and then getting followed up with a fuller delivery, and he's been dismissed. All three venues, if you look at his dismissal mode, it's quite similar. He got tested with the fast, short delivery, followed up with a fuller one, and he's given up his wicket. Uzi, whereas he just looks like class above, over 350 runs from both sides. He's just a standout. The unfortunate part is he's missed out on two big hundreds, getting out in 90s. And I felt for Steve Smith as well, especially when he got a chance, put down by Noman. He should have cashed in, but again, in the fantastic spell of fast bowling from Naseem Shah, he's bowled probably 10 maiden overs by now. He has been a standout for me in Lahore. That his pace is still up. He's still bowling in 140s. He's still swinging the ball. The wicket that he just got Trevor's head out. The ball seemed in and then went away. And Heads had no chance, and Heads has been dropped as well. So there's been a couple of opportunities that Pakistan have put down, but given that to be in 5 down, 2 new batters in towards the end of the day, if they get one more wicket, they're well and truly on top to get the points here on Test match.
Absolutely correct. Look, it was a masterstroke to actually select an extra bowler. And when I say an extra bowler, they had no rounds dropped for a fast bowler, but it's more or less a bowler, in my opinion. Because I think you need to, like, I said exactly the same thing, as you know, for quite a while now, that they probably should have dropped Travis Head for the last Test match not only this test match, and I'm very glad because Brad Haddon absolutely agreed with me on the commentary earlier today. Mark Waugh, who, look, I'm going to be really honest, Mark Waugh annoys me. He's got this air of he knows better about everything, and he's the quintessential knowledgeable person. But the reality is, Brad Haddon was that clever enough to say that. Mark was almost like, that's ridiculous, but not a bad idea. The reality is that's exactly what Australia should have done. They should have taken another bowler, namely Agar, or for that matter, Boland, in place of Travis Head, who has yet again failed. He got 20 on. He's failed again. And look, I don't care that he scored 2 centuries in Australia. I have never been a fan of him. Why? Because he's not consistent. He has shown lack of consistency in his previous tenure playing for Australia. That's the reason why he was dropped with Wade. Both dropped from the previous series or whatever it was because they both were not consistent. He came back, okay, like a bull out of the gate, scored a century, and one shortly after, and thinks, okay, I'm done now. I can sit back on my heels. Well, he's very quickly slid straight back into that same mode that he was in a couple of series ago, where he's not scoring runs. Now, if he's not scoring runs for an entire 3 test series, they've made a mistake. I'm telling you, I really do think they've made a mistake with it.
You look at the times that he's getting out, in all 3 test matches is when you have either lost a couple of wickets earlier on, or you need to build a partnership and carry the game forward. And that's exactly the time when he's losing his wicket and putting Cam Green or the tail exposed. Now, the score is not big, 200. All team could, they could be all out by 270, 280. And I think on the whole wicket, it's not enough. And that goes back to your number 6 batter to be able to hold the innings together with your tail or lower middle order and bat through the innings and score valuable runs there to be able to go like they were struggling. All of a sudden, Trevor Head play a big long innings, scores gone 350 plus, and that could be a difference. So I think he's putting a lot of pressure on Aussie batting. And Mark Waugh said exactly the same thing, which hadn't brought it up this morning as well, that the issue is not runs. Issue is that they haven't been able to get 20 wickets. And apart from Karachi, where Pakistan batted really poorly, they have not been able to get 20 wickets or 10 wickets for that matter. So I think the problem is not with the batting scoring runs. The problem have been with the wicket taking ability, and heads with not scoring runs, you could have got more value out of number 6 being Agar, playing an extra spinner, and he can bat. He scored 90 odd in his debut. If everyone remembers from his Ashes Test match debut, he scored 90. So the guy can bat. The guy's good enough to bowl his left arm spinners, and it's a pretty good move to bring in pace with Pakistan doing one change. I still would have liked to see the wrist spinner coming in place of off spinner, but that was a 50-50 call I made last night. But I like the move they've gone with an extra pace in Naseem Shah. My heart would have been much better because we both know Haris Rauf, and I spoke to him yesterday, and I wished him already that he might be debuting, but he's got a little more weight, but let's see when he gets his go. But Naseem Shah, all out of the pack that we've seen bowling today, he's been the pick of the bowlers.
Now, no, you're exactly right. Look, the point. It's Australia made a mistake, I'm afraid, with their selection. This not changing their team when they didn't win the second test match because of their lack of bowling strength, because the team was able to survive 2 days. Now, Bubba's up, batted fantastically. There's no doubt about that, but they didn't take the wickets. Now, the immediate question I have is you would need to consider changing your bowling line, and that's to bolster it. Travis Head has proven to me yet again to be absolutely useless in this match. He won't bowl because he's not good enough. His batting has been substandard in this series. Even though he batted well a couple of matches ago, I grant that. But the reality is, he's shown me that he's not consistent, and it is very clear that he's gone right back into the same habits. So the selectors have to see that. They,
Exactly.
regardless of who the selection panel was before and
Bayliss,
after, this is the same pattern.
Trevor
I'll go back
Bayliss,
quickly to Khawaja. Before you go, Khawaja.
sure.
It was between Travis Head and Khawaja for the Ashes series, right? That was the key. And Travis Head, even Pecos, it was clear that Travis Head was better than Khawaja, which was crap.
Khawaja.
Okay, he scored a century, he quieted everybody down. But the moment Khawaja came in, he also scored just 2 centuries, but has gone on with it. He has played in every test innings this particular summer. So this series, he's scored 97, 160, 44 not out, and 91 in these conditions.
Exactly.
Compared to Travis Head, who's got fair to middling, half a dozen here, and a 20. Clearly, there's a gap between the two, especially in the subcontinent.
Exactly
and whatever person tells me that Head's a better selection than Khawaja has got their heads their heads read. Head, I'm afraid, is not a long-term proposition for Australia. I don't care what conditions. You can't score a century, or and then think you're set for the rest of your life. Khawaja's not thinking that. Khawaja's gone on with it. He's gone and he's hammered his position, and he is now the leading batsman of the team by far.
Exactly right.
Warner.
Now, the thing is,
Warner's ordinary. Warner's also ordinary. He's not done well.
Opening hasn't done well. They've had good partnerships to get a good start, 90 odd, 50 odd, and he hasn't gone on. He has struggled on a slow, skiddy pitch where, as I said earlier, with the skiddy, sharp bouncer followed up with a fuller delivery, he's been dismissed. And he and Marco and Brad Haddon were talking about his mid-30s, whether he's still hungry for Test cricket. I don't know. I'd like to see him go for another couple of years. He's such an impact player that if he bats 2 sessions, Test matches heavily favouring Australia. But the thing is, he has not batted that long, even in the Ashes. It's continued here in Pakistan. So it's about 8 Test matches now that he's been on a bit of a struggle. He's had a good white ball cricket. We all saw his form coming back in 2020 Cup, but since then again, red ball cricket, I still believe that he's got a couple of years in him. Whether we need to start thinking ahead and start thinking who's in line, and we spoke about a couple of probabilities, but I think these two. Head's got to go. They could have even gone with Marsh. If they wanted an extra pace all rounder, they could have gone with Mitch Marsh.
Every time Labuschagne's on camera, by the way, he's shaking his head. It's almost becoming comical now because they're watching his every move. And you know what? That's embarrassing. He's showing. Look, I'm not. Again, I know he's been fantastic. He scored 2,300 runs very quickly, but I knew that he had a period of failure ahead of him. It's inevitable. And he's going to start. He's showing. He's going through it in a starting pattern now, and will probably suffer for some time because it's just an inevitability that he would do this. And his reaction at the moment is becoming comical because we're watching him every minute, and he's not able to hide. He's not showing me. He's lacking something in his character that shows the stupidity that we're waiting for him to show a sad face. The reality is that this is where people talk about Labuschagne being captain. What a load of rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Absolute garbage.
He hasn't captained anything. He doesn't even captain his club side. So I would probably put a halt to this conversation about him being future captain at this point in time. I still believe he's
at any time. I'm sorry. At any time. If you haven't captained in your entire bloody life at local, state level or any level, and you expect to be the Australian captain, you got your head read. You should be you shouldn't even be considering it.
No.
As a player, he says, I don't want to be because I'm never a captain. I can't learn captaincy at the Australian level.
No, not at Australian level.
And I don't think he's got the respect to the dressing room anyway. I don't think they'll respect him as captain. I really don't. No. I think it's not even a question. It shouldn't even be considered, to be honest. Okay. Now, I give it to Green and to a lesser extent Kerry. Kerry got 90 odd. I've got to respect him. He did work his butt off to get that 90 odd. Green's got great quality, but they lack. Travis Head could easily have not been in all 3 tests, and we wouldn't have missed him.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would probably given him the first test. First test, he probably.
Yeah, you have to start the series, yes,
Yeah.
but he showed very quickly that he was out of form, and it hasn't changed. I'm sorry.
No.
We needed him right now to get a lot of runs. This was a pivotal innings for him to show his wares, and he just got out. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't care if it was a good ball or not. That's not the point. He got out. And that's the proof of the pudding. These two, Carey and Green, have got a hell of a lot. This is going to be the making of these two this innings.
Exactly
I think,
right.
because I think it's going to be the making. This is extremely important for this series. These two get their act together, because if they don't, and we get a total under 300, Australia on the back foot. There's no way Australia. Okay, I shouldn't say this because Pakistan got 148 in the first innings, last Test match, but I don't think Pakistan are going to do that again. I think they're not.
Bear in mind, and I think I saw one of the questions popped up as well. Bear in mind, this pitch is different. There's more moisture in this pitch. The pitch characteristically is quicker. He's got more life in this pitch than Rawalpindi and Karachi. Karachi and Rawalpindi were very dry, had no life, no pace in the pitch. This pitch has got more life, more carry, and this will last longer and hold longer. I mean, it's crusting already, which is due to the weather and whatnot, but it's got more pace in the pitch. So that means, what's that mean? It means that the turns are sharper. Off the deck, the speed is not going low. Naseem Shah's bowling mid 140s, which is off the air is quick enough. But if this was the pace in Rawalpindi and Karachi, off the deck, it's going to come slower. But here, because the deck has got more life, it's getting carried through with good pace. And that's what got Travis Head. And that's what got Warner with the pace. He got beaten with the ball that came back into him. And the delivery that Naseem Shah bowled to Smith as well. If you see that deck in, Smith got done with the pace as well. So I'd like to see more pitches with this kind of character, and I think it's got to do with the curator as well, coming from MCG. He's put in a bit more water in it. It's got a bit more life and quickened up. So that's a difference of characteristic between Lahore pitch to the other two pitches that we've seen in this series. And I know day 3, day 4, when there's a bit of sun baking on it, it will get sharp turn. And I'd like to see there's already footmarks you see from the pavilion end. There's where Shaheen Shah has bowled from. There's already footmarks developing, and I think they will continue to grow tomorrow. The other thing that I would have liked to see on this pitch was a little bit of grass. There was, when you saw the early pitches 2 days ago, there was a tiny bit of grass on it, but obviously with the preparation of that, they've shaven it off. Which still, I don't mind it, but obviously pitch has been good enough. If these two guys make a 100, 150 run partnership here, and as you said, that's the making of Carey and Green to the next level, because people are already talking about Inglis being a backup keeper to Tour of Sri Lanka and India. I still like to get Inglis involved in red ball cricket. We've started to get him involved in white ball cricket, but I like to get him involved in as a backup keeper, because it's a long series. With 6 test matches coming up, injury or something could happen to Carey. So then you have a backup in Inglis who's already experiencing touring and might get a tour game here or there.
Now, the Pakistan Shaheen Afridi's bowled down. Oh, geez, it absolutely deviated off the wickets just then and went way out. Look, it's we have to be fair to Pakistan here as well. They haven't played. I mean, the majority. In fact, I can't name a person. In fact, is there any player that's played on this pitch in a Test match? No, they haven't. No Pakistani players played on a Test match. Azhar Ali hasn't played either, and he's been one of the longest-standing players.
93 Test matches, never played in Lahore.
That's his home ground.
It's home ground. Yeah, he's born and bred Lahore. 93 Test matches without playing. It's a big occasion. His family's there. His sons have grown. They've never seen their dad or his parents never seen him play at home. When you played 93 Test matches, that's a lot of Test matches for a Pakistani cricket. If you see the stats in Pakistan, not many people actually play 100 Test matches. So it's a big milestone that he's getting towards. So for him to play his first Test at home after 93 Test matches, it's a big thing.
As he said, it was very emotional, very heart wrenching, and it'll spur Pakistan on big time in this match. Robert M989 is asking how would Kasparov play cricket these days. He would have been admirable. He was a very good bowler, very hardworking.
Very hardworking.
He's a good guy. I know him personally. He's a lovely person. He's a very one of the most down to earth guys. Very much a true Queenslander. Not necessarily a Brisbaneite. Where was he from? He's from Central Queensland.
Yeah, country Queensland.
So
I catch up with him during the BPL, and he's trialing that cricket ball with a chip in it. So Kookaburra, what it is Kookaburra is actually trialing to have a chip in the middle of the ball. So what does that track? That tracks the pace and the revolutions on the ball, and now they're working on getting a bit of deviation. So as you see with Hawkeye, when they present data on screen, what does that do is they give you the ball speed, the air speed. When the spinners are on in Australia, you would have seen they give you the revolutions, how much revs the spinners are putting on, and they also give you, if the ball is deviated, how much angle the ball has deviated with. So that chip is actually reading that data, and via Bluetooth, it's communicating back to the laptops that we have on in the change room. So it does. It's a very useful thing. They trialed it against our BPL final, which gave a lot of good data. So I had that conversation with him, and he's one of the main person who's liaising between the Kookaburra and trialing against Queensland Games and whatnot. So I think that's what his contribution going beyond his playing days. He's really thinking about how can we improve fast bowling, and I think once this chip has been tested and trialed and everything, I think it will bring a lot of valuable data back to the change rooms to analyze the game and taking it a bit further. And they do that in baseball. If you know, they look at how much deviation the ball is doing when the pitcher is throwing the ball back to the ball is arriving at the hitter, how much pace it's got, how much swing it's got, and that helps prepare the batters quite in advance. So I think it's great technology to be looking forward in next year or so.
Yeah. Look, so going back to the Australian makeup, and I keep repeating this. This is now the fifth Test innings of the series for Australian batters. Only one century has been scored. Admittedly, we've had a few 90s, I'll grant that, but we've only had one Test century, and that's the way I gauge batting. Okay, so effectively, excuse me, the Australian batting lineup, even though they've had some good, they've got a 500 total here, a 400 total there, they've been under par. Really, Khawaja is the only one that can really hold his head up high. Labuschagne's had what, three ducks this series. Admittedly, one was a runner, but you know it's happening. No one else has scored a century. Carey scored 90. That was pretty impressive. But in general, the facts remain that when the series finishes, we're only seeing so far one century in this Test match, in this Test series.
The thing
no one else. I don't think anyone else is going to score a century now. I can't see Carey or Green scoring centuries. Not against them, but I don't see it happening. And then there's a second innings which will be less likely to score a century, I would imagine. So that is a bit of a shocker on what are basically batting paradise pitches. Relatively good batting. And again, Pakistan's shown it with 5 centuries out of the top 6 batters.
Out of 6, yeah. And you'd think that Uzi's been unlucky twice, but then you want to see Smith, the guys like Kerry, Marnus, even Warner, they should have gone on and scored some big runs here, because the thing is, the batting has not been an issue. The pitches have not been that bowler friendly where you can go, yeah, the bowlers have dominated. Apart from today, it's been this is the only day out of the the 11 days of Test cricket that we've seen where there's more than 5 wickets have fallen on day one. So you know the issue with Aussie batting on that conversion rate, with only one conversion and 3 or 4 90s. Imagine when they go and play in India. They're not going to let them score those 90s even, because they're not getting in a habit of scoring big. They're spending time on the pitch and then throwing their wicket out. So they need to get in the habit of scoring big. And if they don't do that, they will get in that trouble where the 50 is, they think that 50s are enough. 50s are not enough in Test cricket.
Exactly right. Look at Azhar Ali scored 185. Abubakar 196. Even Khawaja 160. Imam al-Haq 150. Shafiq scored big as well. You're correct. The centuries are not only just centuries, they're big. And the centuries, even a century like 101, brilliant innings, it's still not enough on a pitch like this where you should be able to really get in. Khawaja unfortunately got out. It was taken. A great catch was taken.
Really?
So again, Khawaja said, I would argue a faultless innings before that. He's the only one that shows true ability, and not just because he may have been born in Pakistan. That's like the garbage, because he wasn't brought up playing cricket. He played less cricket in Pakistan than the rest of Australia. So the reality is, it's silly to look at that because he happens to be, but he's adjusted. Let's not forget his 2 batting performances in Sydney. He is incredible, really incredible, and he's making Travis Head look silly. I really think that, and I'm not trying to brag, but I knew Travis Head was the wrong selection back with the Ashes series, even though he got a century. I knew long term he was the wrong selection, and it's proven that way. And I'm glad Brad Haddon saw the same thing I did. Secondly, I think the days of Warner and Smith, even Smith, who's still got great form about him, they basically are not the same batters they were before Sandpaper Gate. They're mentally and physically, more so mentally than physically, are not clicked in the gear any longer. And then their days are. Steve Smith's not numbered necessarily by a year or so, but their best is behind them, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong. See, it's been 2 and a bit years since Smith has scored 100. So that's a worrying sign that he's been out of form for that long innings that we used to seeing him since last Ashes that we played in England. Since he's got that concussion, he has not scored 100. He has not come through batting or converting his 50s into 100. His conversion rate's been excellent prior to last Ashes in England, but his conversion rate, if you look at from the concussion time till now, has been poor. He hasn't converted any 50 into 100. People talk about Kohli in being that same mindset. Look, you got to put Smith in there as well, because the out of the Fab Four, the only person who's been converting runs is been Joe Root. He scored 900s in that 2 years period that we've seen the dry run for both Kohli and Smith. Joe Root has scored 100 in this last Test match as well against West Indies. You can argue he's got weaker attack, but he's been consistently scoring runs. He's nearly 10,000 Test runs, being the youngest as well. So both Smith and Kohli, I think there's a little bit of worry. I'm not really worried about Kohli; he will come good. But Smith, since his concussion, he has not scored 100. So and Warner, with his slump in form, he hasn't even scored many 50s either. So both of them, I think they have a lot of things to think about. Smith's already getting dropped out of the 2020 cricket. He's not getting picked in Aussie 2020 as well. He didn't get picked in IPL. So whether his T20 days are numbered, I think he will still be picked by us in Sydney Sixers because he's good enough for the domestic competition. But I don't see him playing in the World Cup, in 2020 World Cup. I think there are plenty of other options in that top and middle order batting where you've got a lot of power hitters who can take it away.
I come back. I know I'm a Jason Sanger fan. I know that. But even when we go back to Shane Warne, or even for that matter Cameron Green, there's a hunch, there's a spark that we see in these players when we give them a red hot go, don't we? Listen, when Shane Warne started, he didn't deserve his position. He was barely playing third grade cricket at a club level. What I'm saying to you is Jason Sanger, Australian under-19 player, captain. He's been doing really well. Perhaps hasn't been standing out as much as he was expected to. I would give him an opportunity to play at this level. I reckon once he got used to this level, he would flourish, absolutely flourish. And he's such an elegant batsman, such a competent batsman, a leader in terms of batting. I would give that person a go.
And an extended go. I would take him to the tour of Sri Lanka and India. Based on his current year's form, he's been in fantastic form with both white ball and red ball. He started to captain state team as well. He's captained Sydney Thunder as well, and he's been standout batter in Sydney Thunder making the finals. The guy has got a leadership quality. As you said, he's captain all through his junior ranks. And not just that, he's performed. He's performed against England A here, scored centuries against New Zealand, scored hundreds. And he's got a habit of scoring big as well. He loves batting. He scores big. His grade numbers this year have been fantastic as well. So I would actually put him in the cover of those guys that we spoke about last time to take him on tours like Sri Lanka, India, give him experience, and blood him in when you think he's right. I think it's the right time for him to start touring with the team, getting that experience of those subcontinent pitches. And next thing you know, he'll be a permanent in that middle order. I think he will be a good replacement for Trevor's Head. He can bowl those handy leg spin that you look at in your lower middle order and middle order batter who can come on and bowl some 8 or 10 overs for the day. He's good enough for that. And he regularly bowls in domestic cricket and with the white ball as well. I would actually keep him in the squad for the T20 World Cup as well, because I think he's proven his worth both with bat, ball, and field, and he's got a good head on his shoulder.
They've only bowled 88 overs, not 90. I'm a bit perplexed why they didn't bowl the 2 overs.
I think there was a bit of delays there today as well. There was a lot of delays with the side screen, and there's 5:30 is a cut-off time. You can't go beyond that because of the health and safety with ICC limitations. So they've lost 2 overs for today, but there have been a few delays with side screen and hold-ups. So whether they make up these 2 overs tomorrow, or whether we've lost those 2 overs for the day, I hope no one gets penalised for those 2 overs, because there has been a lot of stopovers today due to the delays with the side screens and all that stuff. So I think that's just unfortunate. We lost 2 overs, even though the daylight was pretty good, and it's not really a hot day as Karachi was.
No. Look, 2 things I'm disappointed about this test from a Pakistan perspective. Hassan Ali, although he's bowling economy rate was just on 2, which is very commendable, something's missing. The spark of Hassan Ali's not there, maybe because of his injury. The other thing is the crowd. There's barely enough people there to warrant being at the ground. I'm shocked. I thought Lahore, after such a long time not playing, because in Rawalpindi the crowds are pretty damn good. They're a lot less in Karachi, but they're even less here.
Yeah,
I know it's a Monday, but I don't understand why there aren't more people here.
But even though kids, schools, they should bring after the lunch and whatnot, the kids should have been there. There should have been a lot more crowd. It's disappointing because we've just seen Lahore leg of PSL was such a success. There were so many people with families, kids, girls out there supporting Lahore Qalandar. Lahore Qalandar won the tournament as well. So all of that should support the Test cricket having a bit more crowd and there, a bit more noise in the ground. I hope they turn up tomorrow when Pakistan bats at some stage, and hope they come out and support, especially guys like Azhar Ali from Lahore, Babar from Lahore. Those guys, Shaheen Afridi plays for Lahore Qalandar. So those guys, should get a lot of support from the crowd out there tomorrow when Pakistan bat. I hope so.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I, or both of us, quite frankly, we would love to see Harris Ralph bowl in this test match. You could have potentially have put him in there somehow. It may be in place of Hassan Ali because he's just not performing. The spark of, because he's 150 clicks, the fastest Nazim, albeit he's 19, is around the 143, 44, 5 mark. Still very fast, but Harris Ralph, a little bit extra.
I agree. I think Hassan hasn't still come back really 100% from his injury. They carried him in Karachi. He didn't look. He bowled 1 or 2 spells in 140 plus, but then he was predominantly operating at mid 130s. He can bowl 140, 100 mid 40s, but he was still a bit low on his pace. Even today, his first spell was touching 140, but then he dropped back to mid 130s as well. I still think he's still not 100%, where they could have carried, they could have gone with out and out pace and 2 spinners with Naseem with high 140s and Rauf being 150. that would have been a big difference playing in Lahore pitch.
So even though Neumann got 6 wickets in the first match with Rawalpindi and Sergeant Khan, they're bowling quite admirably, but they're not penetrative as much as I would like them to be. And I think the pace bowlers would have been a better composite. Anyway, they're 5 for 235, 232. You would argue that's Australia's. No, it's probably even, but more so Pakistan's.
More so Pakistan, probably 60-40. I wouldn't say a win in a day. I would say 60-40 or probably 45-55. The thing is, if they would have gone in another wicket in Carey, probably that would have been Pakistan's day. But even then, run rate has been low, as every day one of 3 test matches been operated at about 3, 2.5, and 3 runs per over. The thing is, come tomorrow morning, Pakistan gets early wickets. Australia's out below 300. I think that's subpar. That's not even par. I think batting first in Lahore, you want to score 350 plus, close to 400 runs on board. But if Australia gets out below 300, I think that's a really good win for Pakistan. And then they bat well, they bat long, score 400, 450. I think the game is for them to be taken, because especially first 2 tests being draw, they haven't taken many points out of it. The opportunity is with Pakistan. They have not beaten Australia recently in Australia. They have beaten Australia in subcontinent, but they have not beaten Australia in Australia. So they have been below par when they play Australia. This is a great opportunity for them to now, at home, given that the first 2 tests are draw, take points here and make themselves a good contender for the World Test Championship.
Now, Pakistan have to make sure now they've got them 5 for 232. They need to get them all out for less than 300. They can't let them slip to 350 plus, because then that will bring things back again. This is a window's been opened. Get rid of one of these 2, the batter that are in now, and they'll skittle. This is the last. I mean, Cummins and that can bat okay, yes, but I think that's the end of it. I think if you get one of these 2 out now, you could easily see a less than 300 score. But
I think in the morning, fresh legs in the morning, the ball is still new. So I think the opportunities for them to be taking, I think the target for me, Sean Tate, bowling coach, Suckland being head coach, got to drill this into the bowlers that you got to go and clean it up as quick as possible. Get the team out, say 280 to 290, sub 300 runs would be a win for Pakistan, I think, for their performance on day one.
Look, I listened to Sean Tate on his press conference, and this is going to sound awful. It's going to sound really awful. I always thought, just from the appearance of the way he bowls, and he was very wayward on occasions or very fast, I always thought that he would be a bit of this is going to sound terrible, a bit of an airhead. I didn't think there's much going on between the ears, but I'm totally and utterly wrong. He is eloquent, insightful, understanding, impressed me no end. I would hire him, and he could be just the tonic for Pakistan to unleash the beasts, so to speak, and get them a bit more aggressive, as what Sean Tate was.
Exactly.
And I think he could be a master stroke. I mean, is it Akib Javed, is it? The guy that we both know who brought Lahore Clunders through and really brought on Harris Ralph and Salman Urshad, all of those guys. He's very good, but I think that unleashing the beasts, a bit of aggro, a bit of a short delivery here or there. I mean, they got Warner almost caught it that short mid-on, silly mid-on off a ball that popped up. The reality is that he could be just the tonic for Pakistan. The other thing is Pakistan. This series is, I'm telling you now, everyone's watching this test series. Whether you're from India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Australia, New Zealand, wherever, England, they're watching this series over and above England versus West Indies, or for that matter, the Indian Sri Lankan series, which was a bit of a fizzer. This series is undoubtedly true test cricket. I'm loving this. I'm enthralled. I know it's dour on occasions, but I just love the way that, say, the Pakistani batters have got lots of runs. The way that Australia haven't done that, except for Khawaja. You know, when Khawaja goes into bat, you want to watch it, because you know he's going to provide that masterclass of batting. It's an impressive test match.
I just want to add a comment regarding Sean Tate. The time that he's been involved with Afghanistan and he's been working as a backroom support staff, there's been a lot of good feedback coming out that he's really knowledgeable in terms of what you said earlier on, that his approach towards fast bowling coaching has been really great. He's actually talking to players, and players are listening to him, really responding well. You saw him earlier this morning before the warm-ups. He was talking to Shaheen Afridi with a lot of purpose, and he was talking about the areas to hit. And when Shaheen came in and bowled that aggressive spell early first couple of overs to Warner, he was tight, he was fast, he was into his body, and that bumper was into his body as well, which rattled him, which got the wicket in the next over. So I think Sean Tate, we all know as a bowler, being wayward, just wanted to bowl fast and not listen to anyone. But Sean Tate, being a fast bowling coach, he's totally different, coming from different perspective. He relies upon a lot of data. He looks at a lot of data. He understands the opposition well. And I think he will be getting involved in IPL. And I hope Pakistan keep him for long term. They've got him a 1-year contract, but I hope they keep him for a long run, because he's got that understanding that players respect him, one, and two, he passes on some good information to players as a bowling coach. So it's really important that we differentiate his playing days between his coaching credentials, and he's proven to be, a lot of guys from Afghanistan cricket have said a lot of good things about him as well. So his bowling coaching credentials are building high.
It's interesting. Whenever I hear of anyone that's who's coached, mentored, or been involved with Pakistan cricket, whether it be Matthew Hayden or go back to Jeff Lawson, or even the likes of, now with Tate, they all talk very highly of the relationship they have with the players and the team. Now I put that down to there's a respect given by Pakistan players to anyone helping them in their they want to learn. They look up to these players. It's intriguing because, and I'm not knocking India, but India doesn't have quite that same thing that goes on at the highest level. They tend not to be revering non-Indians in their management structure. Would you agree? The coaching structure, like Greg Chappell had all sorts of issues when he was there, but there seems to not be the same relationship. But when you have even the South African bowler, Philander, came when he played, he was involved. He spoke extremely highly. Yes. Matthew Hayden wants to go back. Sean Tate already in a very small time has already had an impact of what he feels from their reaction. There's something of respect that's given and an adoration, which is a good thing. That they're humble enough to realise that these blokes have done a lot before. We've got to learn from them, rather than I'm beyond that.
And I don't know.
Just quickly, Neil Harvey always told me that the current crop of Australian captains like Smith, even Michael Clarke, never ever approached him on any advice. And I'm not trying to say he was a guru, but if I was Captain Australia, I would go to every previous Captain Australia who was alive and pick their brain.
Exactly. And I caught up with Matthew Hayden here in fortnight before here in Brizzy, and he was talking so highly about the players, and just responding to what you said earlier. He just said that as soon as he walked into the change room for Pakistan players, they just had that utmost respect for him. The boys sat down and listened to him. He related a lot of his coaching back to his stories, and that's where he's been. The coaching at that level is not about changing the technique too much. You actually, first thing you're doing is getting the mindset right. And in coaching, we learn the first thing is how to play with the player psychology, how to get the player perform at their best. And Matthew Hayden related that really well in the World Cup you saw. And also the other person we both know and passed away recently, Dean Jones. He was really well respected in Islamabad United, and then when he went to Karachi Kings as well, same mentality, same approach, that where he was actually giving players respect, gaining so much respect by actually bringing their best out of, the guys like Rizwan was sitting on a bench 2 years ago. We all know he was not even getting a run in Karachi Kings, and now he's your premium wicketkeeper, being awarded as one of the best players. So there's a lot of things that in Pakistan that has come through in last few years. I know when Bob Woolmer was coach and I was involved with Pakistan, there was a lot of things that was going against an overseas coach, and there was a lot of focus to keep local coaches involved. But it hasn't worked. In Pakistan team, it has not worked since 2008. So it's probably the best solution is to keep bringing the experienced head like Matthew Hayden, Tate, and these kind of players. Even Mohammed Yusuf is doing good. Talking about, if you listen to his press conference after second day in Karachi, he was talking about how to play reverse swing, where he was saying when he was growing up and coming into the national sides, they always spoke to him about playing reverse swing. You got to cater for one reverse that is coming in. The coming out, the going out reverse, you'll beat. So if you play with the mindset, if the ball reverse in, you got to cater for that, and that's what the guys learn and handle the reverse swing in second innings really well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good things to like about this young squad in Pakistan. Give them 2 years together. I think they will be a really force to reckon with. I don't think they're the best at the moment. I don't know if they qualify World Test Championships finals, because obviously they're sitting second at the moment. They win against Australia this Lahore Test, they win against England and Sri Lanka, they've got a red hot chance to make it. But I think in 2 years' time they'll be really right to be Test contenders.
Absolutely. Okay, there's a couple of comments here. Satvik Bhatkara, who's often making comments, says, why is the ICC only targeting Asian pitchers when a match finishes in Australia and New Zealand? They say very little. I agree, totally, 100%. And you know what it comes down to, I reckon, Rosen? It's the prettiness of the pitches. In Australia, everything looks green as, it looks perfect, whereas this pitch looks bare patched here and there. That's an irrelevancy. And it is true, there is a quick criticism of these pitches. And I think this has been fine. It's, to me, been a fantastic test series. I've loved it rather than being bored of it. I think it's the complete opposite. It's been enthralling. I love watching on occasions a good batting condition because it tests batters and bowlers. We expect more out of the batters, and we should, and the bowlers as well. So it's, no, I've got no problem. There's mentioned about Greg Chappell not being liked by the entire country. Greg Chappell's a difficult character. I've
done a lot of work with GC, and he's one of those guys that you either love or you hate. And I think when he went to India, I did a series with him. You were doing Sri Lankan management at that time. Remember the Townsville series? When you were with the Sri Lankan team, I was working with GC in the Aussie camp. And on one dinner night, I asked him the question, what happened in West Indies? And he tells you a lot of stories about, he tried to bring the change in Indian culture, thinking, mindset, same way that he would have done in Australia. And he did when he was a head coach at the Centre of Excellence at the time, when he brought the second 11 culture, changed the age group band to the second 11. So he tried and experimented a lot of things, and he wanted to do that in India. And obviously he was not well received with those changes, and especially when Ganguly was in charge of Indian cricket, and we all know his famous altercation with Saurav at the time. And since then, the West Indies Cup didn't go well, and then it was all downhill from there.
Do you know, I actually was in Mumbai, staying at the Taj Palace with my then wife, and Greg Chappell was in the hotel, and I had breakfast with him. And I also had the previous night, I went to a restaurant called Tendulkar's. There was such a restaurant in Mumbai. It's no longer there, which is a bit of a disappointment. I had a long discussion with him, and that was at the epicenter of all that happening. He was still the coach at that particular moment in time. Look, I like Greg Chappell a lot. He can be very hard-nosed, though. He can be quite difficult.
Exactly.
And the only thing I can say in disappointment about Greg Chappell is that he reminded me too often that he was the Australian captain, He said that he would say those words. And I actually said something to the effect of, Greg, you don't need to tell me that. I know. It's an interesting, like Ian Chappell would never do that. Ian Chappell would never tell you. Because Neil Harvey would never tell you. They would never openly have to say who they were. They just it's an intriguing personality trait. If you've been captain of Australia, you don't need to tell people, because they're going to know. If they know anything about cricket, they're going to know immediately. So the fact that you have to remind people that you are, not because they don't know, but because you think they don't know, is a strange trope. Look, I was with Neil Harvey one day at St Ives Shopping Centre, Woolworths, having a Black Forest coat, right? Really humble. We're at the counter, and in came a rugby league player, and I've got his name, second row for Manly. He was a real tough nut. Anyway, I've got his name. He came in, and I knew who he was immediately, and he made sure that he told me who he was and everything. Neil Harvey, I said in front of this guy, "Oh, Neil also played for Manly," which he did. But not about the fact that he was an Australian legend. And Neil kept very, very quiet. Then we sat down, and then this particular Manly rugby league player was in shock because it dawned upon him who he was, and he came running over like a puppy dog and, begged but it was intriguing because all he could do was beat his chest about how he played for Manly and even Australia, And Neil Harvey didn't say a bloody word about who he was. And that showed to me the class of the man. If you're humble enough not to have to try to big note yourself, even though you had the biggest opportunity to say something, he didn't even bother. It was a very intriguing moment. David, what's his name? David, do you know Manly Rugby League team? Was a very famous second rower. He was one of their leading. Anyway, I forgot his name. That's how important he is to me. All right, back to the series. I think that yet again, I mean, it was a clear toss to win and bat first. I think that was the right decision.
No brainer. No. In Pakistan, India,
Australia have not taken advantage of that at all.
No.
They've not done what they should have done.
Advantage lost when you lost Uzi and Head in succession. If Uzi and Head would have batted through today and come back and Uzi makes a big 100 or double 100, the game's over for Pakistan. But I think Pakistan have bowled really well with the older ball. When they took 2 wickets, fantastic catch to Babar Azam when he took Uzi's dismissal. He was awestruck. Actually, they had to review it because Uzi didn't believe it, that the ball is actually carried and Babar has taken it cleanly. It was a low catch to his right, which is you're blindsided by the keeper's pad as well. Fantastic catch, but I still think Australia have missed a good opportunity on day one, even though Pakistan have dropped 2 catches, 2 cotton balls, both spinners, and half a chance to Babar in the slip as well. So you probably can argue 2.5 chances gone down for both Smith and Head, but both of them did not capitalize big in going in and scoring big 100. So I think the advantage lies at this point in time with Pakistan. Key would be Carey and Green, because Carey can score quickly as well. So we got to keep this in mind. That comes tomorrow. If the ball's not turning big, Carey can actually take on to the spinners, as what Smith and Uzi did in the middle when Norman came in. Both had the opportunities, and next over, Uzi slog sweep him, and Smith hit him down the ground, and all of a sudden Norman was out of the attack. So the positive batting is the key tomorrow, and Carey is very well capable of scoring quickly. So important thing is that Pakistan keep Australia sub 300, and the thing for Australia is one big partnership. They get 350 plus. The game is in their favour.
Oh, look, it's an intriguing day. We have to be wary of the fact that Pakistan did go all out for 148 in the first in his last match. That's one thing we'd be wary of, because we can't really judge how good or bad the Australian innings until we see Pakistan bat on the same wicket. We know that golden rule. But I can't see them getting 148 this time. I think they're going to be probably, as long as Pakistan gets Australia below 300 on, then Pakistan can move into an ascendancy role and should go a bit past that, if not more. So that's going to be very pivotal. If they can make Australia have to chase to catch up in their second innings, so to speak, to give any chance to Pakistan batting last on the test, it's going to be an interesting match. And that's
the thing. If Pakistan don't score big, and if they give lead to Australia in first innings, fourth inning batting is going to be really tough. As you already saw, there's more life in this pitch. There's more pace in this pitch. Batting on fourth inning with 2 spinners and Schwexen's got a really good opportunity bowling on this pitch fourth inning. With Lyon from one end and Schwexen from the other, and obviously Lyon will choose to bowl from the far end because the footmarks are already developing on the pavilion end. But Schwexen bowling from pavilion end would be a really, really good opportunity for him to bag a handful of wicket or play that role for a second spinner. So that's why it is really important that Pakistan don't surrender a big lead to Australia. They've got to go in front of Australia, at least 50, 60 runs in front, or even 100 runs in front, and try and keep Aussie down in the second innings. Because remember, fourth innings, day 4 and day 5 would be the toughest to bat on this pitch.
No, it's a very. If you would argue Pakistan's slightly in favour because of the expectations of Australia getting 400 plus, so that's true. Green and Carey now, these are make or break innings for these two guys. Carey's done really well last test, yes, but in the end it didn't make any difference because Bubba Azam knocked them over. But this is important. They need to get, Australia can resurrect this and get 350, 400. They've made amends for this day. But that's going to be hard if we lose another wicket. Pakistan should come out with all guns blazing. Sean Tate will be in their rear overnight, saying blast them out in the morning. Have a silly mid-on for the batters and really up around the rib cage.
Tight lines, good attacking. And the other person that we really need to, we haven't really spoken highly, and he's gone in a bit of like a hidden gem in this series is Shafiq. He's bad. He's been dismissed twice, one run out and one silly shot against Lyon in first test match. Apart from that, he's looked $1 million. The guy can catch. He's a good slipsman. He's fielded well, and he's got a really good head on his shoulder as well. So he's come out and batted in all 4 innings with really purposeful batting. Even though Imam failed in both innings in Karachi, where Shafiq failed in first innings, silly run out, which was never a run. But in second inning, his purposeful inning, batted really long with Babar Azam to get that 96. I think he's another one on a long-term investment for Pakistan for the top order until Abid Ali comes back into the fold. He's on a mend. He's recovering. He started running. I spoke to him on a message, and he's really on a mend, and he's looking forward to come back to first-class structure real soon to play that domestic in Pakistan. But I think that's really good to have 3 or 4 top order batters. And you saw Shan Masood is benching. We spoke about Shan Masood with his first class form coming into this series was really good. He had a good PSL as well. So that's another strengthening your bench strength for top order batters. I still am not comfortable or 100% about Fawad Alam's spot in the middle order. He's still,
there's something not right there.
No, I still think he's very vulnerable to pace when there's a lot of airspeed. I wish he can continue to play for another few tests, but I think that's the spot that's going to be opening up really soon. I want Azhar Ali to keep going for a few test matches more because his experience passing on his experience to the younger lot is really valuable. He's captain Pakistan. He's good friends with Babar as well. So obviously he's passing on his experience well. He's played 94 test matches. You've got to give that credit to guys who plays 94 test match. There are not many Pakistani players who played 100 test match because they don't play enough test cricket. If you compare India, Australia, England, and even South Africa. So, guys have done really well for the country. He's got to keep going for a little bit more. And I think that 2 spots, you've got to start looking at your bench strength to replace Fawad and Azhar in the long term.
Yeah, this is a great test match. It's going to be very interesting. It's probably going to go the 5-day. Well, you'd think it would go probably close to 5 days. Or a lot of ups and turns going on, and I'm just already impressed with this. And yeah, Travis said was a mistake. I think that they could have. The George Bailey, I think, is a pretty good selector. By the way, I think he's generally a pretty good selector.
He was a good captain too.
Yeah, I think he's done some good things as well. But I just need to see what they were considered with Agar. Agar should have been given a go at some stage through the series, purely because they were earmarking him to be the second spinner ahead of Swepson. I believe that's what they were thinking. They've changed their mind somewhat. As I told you, I met up with Steve O'Keefe yesterday and we had a good long chat. And, he, to me, would have been the ideal bowler to bring into this match as well. Because his spin is just incredible. I just want to finish. I've interviewed 12 sets of people for this Indian IPL update, as I told you. I had a guy today, I think it was Grant. I interviewed him only a couple of hours ago. And he had 2 big dogs, didn't really want to talk. His wife convinced him. He then said, I'm going to back the Rajasthan Royals in the IPL. And why? Because of the legacy of Shane Warne. And that was beautiful. He came up with this beautiful discussion about Shane Warne. And it's just, I need to talk to the public more about Shane Warne. I think the romance of him is amazing. And I think the world needs to hear it from Australians, not just because we're hearing a lot about how much he was applauded. We're not hearing from the average Australian as much as we should. And there are people that are a mess. I mean, even Alan Mullally, who, we know was a good mate of Shane Warne, he's a mess. And this guy's like Grant too. Also, he said to me, "I'm the same age as Shane Warne is, 52," and it rocked him. That whole thing that he don't expect someone like Shane Warne to die, because no one knew that he had any illness.
No.
The fact is,
I think that would be great for Rajasthan Royals, like the Karachi Kings won when Dean Jones passed away, and they dedicated the win to Dean Jones and his contributions towards the franchise. And I think Rajasthan Royals, working with Shane Warne in those years, they owe it to Shane Warne. He got the franchise. It was the cheapest franchise bought at the time in 2008. And all of a sudden, Rajasthan Royals was the household name. And obviously, who didn't know Shane Warne and Shane Watson at the time, but he made Rajasthan Royals arrive in the IPL. So I think my heart goes to Rajasthan Royals to go well and do well this year and win it for Shane Warne.
Imagine, as you know, he was captain coach of the winning IPL, and he claims it to be his biggest achievement.
Exactly.
Over and above other.
The fact was, when we picked the team, when we had the team in front of us, and I saw the team first, and I said, "There's no big name in the team. There's no Sachin Tendulkar. There's no, Dale Steyn. There's no big names.
No Shah Rukh Khan running the show.
No Shoaib Akhtar. No, nothing. First game, we scored 125 against Delhi Daredevils, and Sehwag came out and tear our bowling apart because we had young bowling attack. All of a sudden, we were thinking in the change rooms in Delhi, how are we going to go past 14 rounds? And here comes Shane Warne after his press conference and said, "Bad game, happened, move on." So we went into the bus, all cheery. He's cheering everyone up. He's leading the charge along with Darren Barry. Next 7 games, we did not lose a game. And we qualified.
So was Darren Barry in that style? Was he Darren Barry?
Darren Barry was the assistant coach with Shane Warne. And Jeremy Snake was the other person.
He's a good nut, he is. And he obviously unearthed Nathan Lyon too, as we know, in the nets at Adelaide.
Yeah. A lot of respect for Darren Barry. A lot of time. I've worked with him in IPL at Rajasthan Royals and then with Sydney Sixers as well. So I've actually found him really smart coach. His approach is very structured. He's very well respected in domestic cricket as well. So I've got a lot of time for him. I've got a lot of respect for him. He's really good.
He was also a good player in his own right. Very good keeper, batsman.
Missed out.
He was a real cheeky bug. I think I told you there was a game between New South Wales and Victoria at SCG. There was no crowd. And you could hear every word they were saying. And Shane Warne and Darren Barry in unison were psychoanalyzing every New South Wales batsman to the nth degree. It was quite incredible. There's a lot to be said. See, I heard today, as you may have heard, Chris Silverwood looks like he's almost got the Sri Lankan coaching role.
Yes.
Yep. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to see, even David Graveney alluded to the fact that they were considering Warne. They're going to probably they're going to be a massive shake up there too. They may, Justin Langer still in the midst there.
I think so.
Who do you think is going to be the next Australian coach?
Trevor Bellis. My heart goes to Trevor Bellis. I think he's a
Who's sorry?
Trevor Bayliss from New South Wales. He's done Sri Lanka. He's done IPL. He's done England. He's been really successful coach. I've had really good working relationship with him. He's another one of the person that has got a lot of respect, especially from the guys coming from New South Wales who've been.
Has he applied for the Australian job this time or not?
I don't know. That's a good question. Like Thunders, he turned around Thunders this year as well. A lot of respect.
I've heard from a few people that are cricket in South Wales and beyond that I've heard that he may not be applying for it. May have actually refused. Not refused, but not gone for it, and that would be a horrible situation. To me, Jason Gillespie is another one, but
he said no. said no. Gillespie's come out and said no. I'm not applying. He's enjoying South Australia and he's enjoying the T20 role with the strikers. So he's already said no. I'm not applying. So whether they'll just go with McDonald for a little longer, they will just probably go and see how he goes with the next 2 Test series, or whether they just announce, because you remember they were supposed to announce the head coach in the middle of the tour.
I know. I meant to announce it right now. Right
Yes,
now.
exactly.
And Andrew McDonald, look, I don't disrespect him. He's a good, solid assistant coach. I just don't think he's the coach for Australia.
No, but I think his coaching psychology is really working at the moment with the players. You know, Australian player power is really big, and everywhere. Player power is big in these days when cricket is such a big sport now. He's got his psychology well set. He's really good communicator. He connects well with the players. A lot of the players he's played with, and he's got a lot of respect amongst the playing group at the moment. Even though he's a Victorian, with the New South Wales players respecting quite a lot. But I think whether the Cricket Australia will stick with him for another couple of series and take their time in announcing a head coach, jury's still out there. I think they will probably do that.
Yeah, okay, but they shouldn't have come out with this possibility they're going to announce now. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't, because that's come from somewhere. People aren't making that up. No. It's been stated that would be occurring during the series, and it hasn't. Not yet, anyway.
I think that'd probably be the same approach that England might take. They might stick with Collingwood for a little bit. Collingwood's got the same sort of psychology. He's really well respected amongst the playing group, and again, he's one of those guys who played with some of those senior players at his county end dates as well. So I think they might hold a little bit longer, England. I don't know. We didn't ask that question to David yesterday. He might have some insight about the coach progress in England. But post West Indies series, they've got India, and then they've got their home summer as well. So it'd be interesting how England approaches their coaching staff, because Sri Lanka has been out of head coach for a long time since the World Cup. I think they have to go and get on with the coaching staff. They started to fill up their positions now. They've got the academy coach appointed. They've got the fielding coach appointed. Mahela has been appointed as consultant, and now most likely Chris Silverwood will get the job. And then they've got to complete their rest of the coaching staff. So I think Sri Lanka will start to bounce back a little bit, but I think it will take a little bit of time.
But they need. It's just. I'm very saddened by Sri Lanka because I know it all that well. There are certain people in the overall structure that are there still that are causing grief. Have always caused grief. And very politicised.
Norman, you've been involved with Sri Lankan cricket from closely. There's a lot of political appointments, and that will remain. I know Tom Moody's trying to get the professionalism in Sri Lankan cricket, but I think it is a long battle that he's fighting. I think it will take longer approach because it is very political in Sri Lanka as it is in the other subcontinent countries. Look at Bangladesh; it started to come good. They're winning overseas. They've all of a sudden they're winning one days. They're beating South Africa in the one days as well. So they're doing really well in the one day comp. I think they started to stick it together. But for Sri Lanka, unfortunately, you and I both know it's a long road.
Yeah, they haven't mucked around. They've already had the press conference with Usman Khawaja. He's the one representing. I'm going to be interested to see what he says because he obviously was in the thick of things today. I think a lot of Usman Khawaja. I think he's somebody who actually stood up to Justin Langer somewhat, and Justin Langer didn't like that. And I think that's, in my opinion, a true sign of someone who really should be captain of this country. Again, I mean, anyway, that's just my thoughts. I just think that, I'm going to be interested to see what he does say. I'm going to be uploading it now as well. So just quickly back to the, before you go, just quickly up to involving the this particular video. I've got 12 interviews with the Rami Peesham scorer named Veena, a guy called Peter the photographer, Rami Peesham. Great insights. Then obviously Steve O'Keefe. Then I've got these people from an Italian pasta place in Gucci, which was a lot of fun. One guy knew all about cricket, but he hasn't gone past 74. You can tell everything at 1974. He's a good deal of something now. Then you had people from India and the police backgrounds talking about cricket. But then I had these three today. I had this Grant who was in order of Shane Warne, which was great, and another fellow who was very much appreciative of what's going on with cricket now. So it was great. Great set of interviews. We'll compile it.
Interesting to hear, Norman. Once you upload it, just flick us a note, and I'll listen to it, and we can talk about it in our next catch up.
All right, no worries. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks very much, and thanks to your audience. You've been lovely, and it's been good days of Test cricket. We'll catch up tomorrow to see how day 2 has panned out.
Exciting as it will be.
Excellent. Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Now, that was another great discussion. We've been very blessed by this whole thing. We've had a post day 1 review that we were talking about. And it's really quite impressive how Usman Khawaja batted today. He got 91. He deserved a century, didn't get it, but he had a monumental innings. I'm afraid the rest of his team are not quite making their presence felt. Good old Travis Head has failed again, and I'm wary of this. I'm hammering on about it, but I'm just trying to give you a bit of an indication that I believe that I was right with the selection. When someone like Brad Haddon's in agreement and Mark Wall thinks, not a bad idea, novel idea, whatever he was saying, which was pretty bloody rude. I think that it was pretty obvious that was a good decision. Australia needed to have a bloke who can bowl better than that. Their batting should be strong enough to be able to hold a guy that bowls primarily like Agar and can also bloody well bat, which is another thing that we do know. He's a fantastic batsman. He scored 99 his first ever Test innings in England. If we don't forget that whole scenario, which was amazing, quite amazing. Now, a lot of time for the whole thing. Okay, I was just posting this video for a moment, guys. So you'll see that we've got an interview, press conference with Usman Khawaja from Australia. I'm sure Bubba Azam or the like will be joining us too. I'll be checking on that in a minute. So it's been a really good, typical test day cricket. Usman Khawaja with his 90-odd runs, stealing the show somewhat. Mind you, his efforts have been in vain if they get less than 300. Put it that way. So there's some limit now. So here we go. All right. So what decision by Greg Chappell did he not let such an opening? Well, he butt heads with a lot of people. I think Thatcher respected him. Ganguly didn't have a great liking for it. That's all good. Pakistan and Australia should play 4-match Test series. I think it should play a 5-test series, to be honest. Krishna Mohan, Napi something. 2007 World Cup. India has a very good form of Sehwag, whole team was strong. It was just overconfidence in the intent. That's true. India have suffered on occasions with, you would argue, a form of overconfidence, but they're also an incredible team, and they deservedly are the best in the world at the moment, and should be in the World Test Championship again against Australia, but it may well be against Pakistan. That's the crucial issue here. It could well be on against Pakistan, which would make for great theatre. I'd love to see an India-Pakistan final. That would be okay. So we've got Nazim. But Nazim Shah is actually speaking to the. Interesting how we get. So I'm going to forward that. It's going to be an interesting interview. So Nazim Shah is actually speaking there. Let's see if we can get that up. That'll be an interesting interview, won't it? Nazim Shah. Let's see what's coming up. It's not coming up. No, it's not released yet. That's come true. All right. Nazim Shah. I would like to hear what he has to say, because this is a big day for him. Huge day for him, actually. But, he's bowled particularly well. I think he's bowled particularly well indeed. it's a we transfer of Nasim Shah. Yeah, no, it's been an absolutely fantastic day's cricket. Do you think I agree that Bangalore pitch deserved a demerit point? No, look, I don't think any of the pitches are worth demerit points. I think I'm going to say this again. Both teams have to play on any pitch. Both teams have to play on any pitch. So that's the key to me, and that's what we've got to go by. And that's what we've got to consider as a part of it. Both teams have to play on these pitches. It's not about one favouring more the other. It shouldn't be like that. It's got to be something of a situation where both teams have to play on it. So I'm going to say it again. We cannot take away from the fact that that is the way that Test cricket goes. Pitches won't be always perfect, and that's, you know, it's all well and good. We've got to give the ability to both teams. If both teams have had a bad day, or if favoured one team over another, then certainly I'd be talking that way. But I don't think that's been the case at all. Media conference. Now, how do you spell Nazim? Is it N-A-S-E-E-M? Guys, help me out here. Nazim Shah. Nazim Shah. Nazim Shah, who's only in a... What is he now? He's only 19 years old. He's been around for about 3 or 4 years. He was playing already when he was so young. It's just incredible. Quite an incredible achievement. Post, hang on. Post day one. It was a very good fight. They came out ball blazing with Shaheen's 2 wickets early. Oh my God, I thought we were in for a very low total at one stage. And it's the 3rd test. It's really come down to the wire. Admittedly, this is home territory for Pakistan. They should have been winning 2 or 3-0 here, which, you know, I have to understand. It's a, you know, it's a fair comment, but they've done well regardless. So okay, so post one. I'm just going to post this. It's enjoyable, isn't it, when you have such exciting matches, and I mean, I hope you guys will enjoy. I mean, really, for Baba Azam, for Azhar Ali, and even the whole Australian team to play here at Lahore at Gaddafi Stadium is a massive honour. It's been given absolute, you know, incredible theatre. Pity the crowd's not bigger. I wish they would just encourage people to come, but they don't. Nasim Shah, here we go. I think they should have bigger crowds there. I really do. Even if it's a manufactured crowd, they should still have that crowd there, because that's, you know, that's incredibly important for the theatre. I know they have it for the short format. They have big crowds there for the short format, and, you know, they should make sure that Test cricket is all equally as well. But I didn't think you'd have to. Pakistan's cricket mad, and they haven't had Test cricket there in more than a decade. Why wouldn't they be excited about that? I don't know. I thought they would be there in droves. Admittedly, people have to work. It's not about just gallivanting around watching a game of cricket. Maybe comment. Azim Shah, post day one, 3rd test, courtesy of Pakistan Cricket Board, then Lahore. Okay, so there we have another. All right, 2 videos up, all said and done. Magnificent. So, all right. So Azim Shah may be at least 2 or 3 years old in originally. You reckon he could be? Okay, because the age is a pretty difficult one with, I know, with birth certification and authentications. They can often be misleading their age. You're right. There was one series for Australia in India in March 1992. This pitch is better than Karachi and Rawalpindi. I think so. I think it's got more life. It's got more for both, more for the bowlers, and batters also can also take advantage. Usman Khawaja is one of the best ODI and T20 batsmen in the subcontinent. Well, the thing is, he hasn't been much of a Guernsey the Test side of the short form version, except for the BBL. He's a lot of high praise for him. Let's be honest. So we've got media conferences are out there in force. We've got certainly some pretty decent. Let's have a look here. I'll turn that on. Turn this on, turn that off. It's all these things going on here. We've got all that to be. Just a matter of having to copy all that. All right, so we've got an on basis here. So there we go. Usman filled the void by Sean Marsh, yeah. Shaheen bowled well, so he certainly did, and so did Nazim. Well, Nazim played very, very well and deservedly. He selected. Candace is going to play in the Australia Home Series. I hope he does in Anshu Ruella. I think they need to consider him. I'm taking a bit of a calculated risk, I would argue, but that's something that you can do. You certainly can do with a player of that caliber. You know, get him in amongst this and get him used to it. Bang, off he'll go, and that's the key. He's got the ability to actually really go on with it, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, no doubt. I think that's one thing I think I'd really like to see is him to come through with flying colours and really show his wares. So we've got Usman Khawaja, who has been bagged from pillar to post, but he is the real deal. He scored century after century. He scored the 2 centuries in Sydney, then he had a mild day after that in the last test. Then come out and Hobart, that was in fact. Then he's come out and just every single innings in this particular series here in Pakistan has been brilliant. 97, 160, 44, and now 91. That's pretty damn good batting, isn't it? You would argue. Let's just look at that so 97, 160. That's what, 257. 44 is 261, 301. And then a further 91, that's 392 in 4 innings. 392 in 4 innings with 1 not out. So 392 divided by 3, he's got a batting average of well over 130 for the series. It's pretty emphatic, isn't it? You look cute. I look cute. Are you kidding? Thank God Australia can bowl Pakistan, and I'm sure it's different. Yeah, I agree. Aussie beat Pakistan in the 1997 World Cup semi-final in Lahore. They did. And Lahore was also the place where the 96 World Cup was on too, where, in fact, Sri Lanka played. Australia and Sri Lanka were beaten. I mustn't forget that. So that was another time which proved to be certainly other than what it should have been. Usman Khawaja, very impressive. Usman Khawaja, impressive today with his impressive today. He scored 91. Aussie lost, and I exactly was right, correct. I think pitch will assist Bennis should straight away start with you. They probably will eventually, but they won't go straight away. But we'll give it a fair go. So 91 today. He's had innings of so far. He had 97 in Pindi, then 160 and 44 not out. In Karachi, and now 91 in Lahore. He'll be very happy with his home series. I certainly would be. Ashwin plays on ranked turners. Well, that's true, but he's still a good bowler. Instead of posting things on Instagram, Warner should face in his test batting. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So again, 97, 160 was 257, 44, 301 with 91, 392 runs, which is a leading run scorer. Over all the Pakistanis have been doing very well too. In 4 innings. Quite impressive. Stark tomorrow, 5 wickets. A big ask for Enda Athari. It's a big ask. We'll see how we go. It could happen. I'm not saying it won't. I'm not saying it won't happen. It could happen. I'll give it some credit where credit's due. there's no reason why it can't happen. I agree with that. Let's go this. And little Nazim Shah seems to be a little bit shy, but I'm sure he's more than capable of taking him on the press, Caroline. There we go. I'm going to save these videos. Sumit Lohan batting why? What are you talking about? I don't get what's Sumit. Labuschagne only good in Australian conditions normally. Well, it's appearing that way, but he's also pretty good in England. But yeah, he had an incredible start, which you've got to take your hat off to him. He's done very well, but he's bound to have had a failure period, and that's what the key is here. He's had a period of failure, and that's what he has to understand. That he has to get through that, and he looks as horrified, like he's never going to ever fail. And that is a distinct mistake in his preparation, that he is going to fail. And probably fail big time, and he needs to be able to resurrect his career from that and do well. And then he hasn't done that yet. So let's just, let's be wary of that. Realistically, that's the question you got to understand. He hasn't done it at this point, and he's got to show us now that he can. And that's the key to it. I think that's where we'll see his true mettle. He's got to stop showing his anguish in the crowd. To think what Shaheen Stark is able to get swing over. Stark should have a field day too, but it's wait and see whether that actually happens. All right, we've got to give him the opportunity. So good luck, good young bowler. Shaheen did very well, but Nazim Shah did very well too. A good young bowler. So it's sad to hear it, but Warren, isn't it? Good young bowler. Yeah, it was very sad. Justin Langer was responsible for dropping Usman. He was. They didn't get along at all. And look, you got to, Langer for some reason. I don't know what the story is there. They didn't get along. They did not get along. Okay, and there's always going to be an issue when you have situations like that when someone doesn't get along. You have to wonder what is wrong, what is actually wrong. Why are they in that situation? Why is there a disappointment in the? It's live review. It's 2-4. Okay. All right. So you've got to ask the question of what is actually going on there, and that's what my question is immediately. So Nassim Shah speaks to that. I like the way they say that. There's certainly been a lot of praise for the Pakistan approach to the series, the way that they've administered it, the way they've provided security, everything. Why should they not try Zampa? He could be. I totally agree. Don't worry, I totally and utterly agree about the Zampa scenario, but he's not. He'll be here for the one-day series, you would imagine, but he doesn't quite get the same gurney that he should be, and it's disappointing. Look at that. Awesome. Read more. It's been a great day of cricket, that's for sure. All right, guys. So Justin versus Kai's a little bit like that. This one was Labuschagne on. Well, Vic Pakaria, he's going to have failures. He had such a charmed period where he got 2300 runs in no time. You have to have failures. You have to come through those failures. And he's going through it now, and he's showing all sorts of dramas. It was the worst thing on earth, but it's not. And he's got to wake up to himself, because he could slide right out if he doesn't watch it. If he doesn't come to the realization he's going to fail and move on with it and just concentrate on the next innings. And that's the question I've got for him. Is he aware that these things will happen? Is he aware that he can't always succeed? You have your moments when you don't want to do that. I'll give you that. I'm not saying you don't want to have that happen, but you've got to take a bit of credit there that things will go wrong. All right, guys, I've been on for an hour and a half. It's been a fantastic session. We'll be here tomorrow. It'll be a great video on the IPL. I'll be bringing out hopefully tomorrow. So So that'd be great. So if you like and share the post, make sure you subscribe, as most of you generally do. Also, share, tell other people about it. Do you think Labuschagne will struggle in Indian conditions? Absolutely. Absolutely. No fear he will suffer in those conditions. All right, guys. See you all tomorrow. Make sure you do subscribe. Make sure you go to my Twitter and Instagram handles at Norm Koch. Norman Koch is my Facebook and my LinkedIn pages as well. All right. All the best, guys. So any other questions? One last question. I'll take one last question. Anyone wants to ask one last question, and we'll finish with that. So one of those days where you do want a break. No last questions? Do you think Labuschagne is struggling? I didn't say that. He will struggle out here. Okay. Who could be the replacement for Warner in Test future? Bukowski, or he's struggling with concussion? Bukowski is still one of the ones. Marcus Harris shouldn't. This Hunt character might be another that they might bring back. A few others, like even the left-hander from Queensland, Matthew Renshaw, might be another one they might bring back, or even Jason Sanger under the parade. That's what there's a lot of options. They'll be thinking on it for too long. Now. Okay, just a few more, and then we'll cow. All right. Again, as I said, keep in contact with me, and we'll do well. All the best, guys. Take care.